Hey guys, German here, back with another video. This time doing something different. I've been getting a lot of requests to play some smaller stakes and just showcase how to play the smaller stakes, what changes you should make, how to approach the games. And unfortunately, or fortunately for some of you, the answer is basically there's no difference. It's going to be, at least in my opinion, the key, or what you should be doing, is focusing on just playing solid poker. And when I say solid poker, I mean solid, fundamentally sound, theoretical poker, or GTO, as a lot of people call it. And the few things that actually do change in micro stakes, one, we can talk theory wise, and two, we can talk exploitatively. And so, first of all, theory wise, at micro stakes, the rake is much higher. So, at some stakes, it's basically 5% uncapped across basically all sites. And 5% uncapped is very, very high. It's very tough to reach the rake cap of $3, I believe, on PokerStars. So, you're paying an insane amount of rake. So I don't think you should have flatting ranges from any position except for the big blind. Like maybe the button you can flat, but even that, with this very high rake structure, I don't think you're going to get a lot of value from that. Just overall, playing much tighter, opening tighter, potentially even opening for a larger size. However, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to say exactly what you should be doing theory wise. I'm no expert, but I definitely think the proper theory adjustment in a higher rake environment is to have less flats and more three bets, more raising for a larger size, and playing overall tighter ranges pre-flop. And then, secondly, when we talk exploitatively, we can talk about the population, like before you get into the games, because exploitatively is based on the individual player, usually. At least it should be. And when you're playing micro stakes, you're not going to get the hand sample that you need to have, confident exploitative reads on players, because there's so many people in the pools and there's so many different players that you're not going to reach these, 1,000 hand samples that you can make these exploitative adjustments. So overall, you can get a feel for the pool, and this is more art than science sometimes. But if you feel, the pool is overall, a little passive, maybe you want to start, mixing in a little bit more folds. You feel maybe the pool is, playing a little bit looser. Maybe you want to isolate some players on average, maybe a bit looser yourself. But just overall, the key here, the key point I'm trying to make for micro stakes is that it's no different than playing 500 Zoom. The opposition you face will be different, as in, they're going to be weaker on average, but the game is still the same. The game is still the same game of poker, excluding the fact that you have a much higher rake. So, yeah, we'll get into it. I did get a lot of requests for this, so hopefully you people will like this. And I'm not using a HUD, just like I'm not using a HUD when I do my other videos, but even more so for micro stakes. I think it's kind of useless to get a HUD. I guess you can, I shouldn't say useless, you can use the HUD to identify weaker players more easily. And I'm just opening to 2.5x from every position, because that's just the default raise size that I have. But if I was playing micro stakes, I think I would set up a 3x raise size, maybe from all positions. These are the spots you might encounter in micro stakes where more often than other stakes, where people might not be using sizes that you've studied. They might be doing things a little bit out of the ordinary. And in that regard, in that, exploitative regard, just use your best logic. Just, play your best that you can play. Just, use solid fundamentals of poker, and then mix in some logic as well. Just because the spot says you have to call sometimes, like this spot here, I think we're supposed to call sometimes. I think I might call still. This guy's a bit shorter stack, so I'll just ISO on table 3 to a bit smaller size. I'm gonna make the fold. I think he just shows up with a queen too much. Just a weird hand, like maybe even jacks sometimes. And reverses a cold color here on table 2. We'll check it back. And yeah, versus the short stack, we're just going to try to get it in, but we don't have to size up too much here. In table 2, he can have some jacks, he can have some 10s. Maybe one exploitative adjustment you might want to do at micro stakes is take less marginal spots. Maybe that might be a thing. But just overall, it's the same game. You know, if you find the pool is filled with weaker players, you find the pool is filled with, you know, people splashing around and with holdings that they're not supposed to have. If you find that on average there's a lot of that going on, then, you know, you just tighten up. You play solid, you play standard, you play ABC, you play the, you know, the solid poker that you're used to. But it's still valuable to study theory spots and what you should be bluffing in spots and what you should be defending in spots and what you should be, you know, calling the river with in spots. But yeah, I would say tight is right is not a terrible approach. We get check min raise on the flop here versus the small blind cold caller. I think we are up against an ace a lot, and I don't think he's going to fold an ace. I'm tempted to look him up here, expecting to be not good, like ever. But we're getting a good price, and he can still show up with some 7-8 king queen, or even weird block bets with a 10x himself. Like I said, just play, you know, straightforward. If the price, you know, you're getting a good price, you have a decent bluff catcher. Don't level yourself too much. You know, you have a good hand, bet. You have a bad hand, check fold. You don't have to worry so much about your frequencies in the terms of actually playing the games. In the sense that the players you play against, the pool is so large and diverse that it'll take a long time before people start getting samples on you. So your actual frequencies won't matter in the short term, but they will matter in the long term. So that's why I think it's important to always be aware, always be studying, you know, what you should be doing GTO wise, and be aware of why you're not doing it if you're not going to do it. Like, for example, if in a spot you're supposed to be bluffing the river, but the person is a calling station, the person likes to call mostly. Like, you know, this person doesn't fold the river ever, then you can be aware that you're supposed to be bluffing it but choosing not to, because the because is the most important part, knowing why you're making exploitative deviations. I'm tempted to hero with the ace-9. I don't think we're good the 1 in 7 times here with the ace high. I think it's too often just like a jack, to be honest. And versus the huge size on table 3, we have a pretty easy fold with jacks. These are the types of things you'll encounter more often in micro stakes than you will in the larger games. At least this is what so like, for example, this would be a somewhat open for me on table 3, but when we're playing the super high raked micro stakes, I would just fold these marginal opens. I would fold every marginal open from every single one of my opening ranges. So anything that is a mixed open, I'm just gonna fold it pure. And I think that's completely fine. We have a good hand, table 2, you know, bet big. It's just trying to play simple, straightforward, good, solid poker. And I'm not talking about never bluffing. I'm not talking about, you know, never hero calling. I'm not talking about drastic changes to what good solid poker should be. I'm talking about just the approach to the game can start from just a solid play tight is right, play solid value heavy poker, but then you should be you should be studying and being aware of the spots as well to your best ability. That's the point that I've said 20 times already that I'm trying to get across here. And I'm just going to go for a normal bet. I think it's a little too thin to overbet. We can still get called by like sixes, maybe even fours, maybe like any tens definitely going to call us. Also, these marginal defends, that would be a fold anyways, the 10-4 suited, but the marginal defends from the big blind as well, you can go ahead and fold those too, in my opinion. Again, the time it takes for people to get hand samples on you and start exploiting the fact that you're not making these marginal calls or marginal raises is a lot of hands, and even then you're likely not going to encounter any players taking advantage of that. And the reason we fold the marginal ones is again because of the high rake, and when we fold we get to see a new hand. And when we see a new hand, we have a chance to just get a donation, we have a chance to get a gift, we have a chance to basically, you know, get a good hand and win some money, or a good spot, a better spot at least. There's absolutely nothing wrong with playing a very, very exploitative style of poker, as long as you're cognizant of why you're doing it. I see a lot of people playing exploitative and not knowing why they're doing it. So table 2, again, because of the weaker opposition, I think at 6-7 suited is fine to overcall here, but again with the high rake, maybe these are the types of hands we should still even fold a lot. And 3 is just getting the right price to call and basically set mine or flop something. Table 3, we're gonna peel versus a min raise and then the half pot. Sometimes the flop min raise, you're gonna encounter a lot of the flop min raise actually, or just it seems weaker players like to do the flop min raise. And when we have an ace, it's less likely he has an ace. And a lot of the time, the flop min raises can just be air, just be nothing. And again, getting half price, he could still be doing this with like a worse ace potentially, even like a king potentially, maybe even a weird blocky 9. You never know. And just getting a good price, and we have an ace blocker, we'll just make the call. And he did have a 9. So yeah, don't put too much weight into these lines versus weaker players where you're like, oh, you min raised me on the flop and then bet bad. He's probably got something. You know, sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and sometimes, you know, you just have a hand and you just call. It's the way it goes. We're getting such a good price here. Just our hand. So some of you who play these games might be laughing at me right now. But yeah, the ace jack offsuit just does not play well multi-way, despite the great price that we're getting. I'm also not labeling players, as I'm too lazy. Table 3, we have 5-4 suited, more than he does. We also have like some 6-7, 6s, 3s, 7s more. I like an overbet here. So yeah, it's not like we're never going to mix in some bluffs. It's not like we're never going to, just like versus when I play weaker players on higher stakes, it's not like I never bluff them. It's not like I never mix in bluffs. In fact, sometimes the right, you know, exploitative adjustment might be to overbluff in some spots, even versus weaker players with a propensity to call more often. But that exact spot might be a good spot to apply pressure. But either way, you know, the exploitative game is a slippery slope, and I try not to focus on that basically ever, and just try to play solid if I can. Sometimes it's more difficult than it looks to play solid. It's easier said than done sometimes. For the most part, just going to be playing my same ranges here. In fact, given the high rake, it might even be better. This guy shoves 100 bigs versus 100 bigs. We have a pretty easy fold here, drawing dead versus a flush. Yeah, versus with the high rake, it could even make sense to have slightly even more 3-bets and less calls. But again, if you consider the weaker opposition, you can make the argument that you could gain some edge in some sort of post-flop situations. But yeah, again, that's all a slippery slope. Don't want to 4-bet too big here. on table 1. But we are at a position, so we will make it a bit larger than if we were in position, of course. We flop a nice texture for our hand here. He'll rarely have 3s, 4s, or 8s, so it's, you know, 8s he could have, but just overall a much better board for us. Anytime the board comes out blank, where neither player improved to nutty hands, the cold 4-better or 4-better in general just is doing better. And yeah, versus that size, we don't have to trap or anything. It's just easy to get it in. He probably has like queens or kings or jacks. I would prefer not to use any run good in these games if possible, so I would love to lose like 20 buy-ins or something in this session, but looks like we have some run good. That was a joke, by the way, for you skeptics out there. So yeah, this hand, like, this is a good example of a hand that maybe GTO-wise we're supposed to be calling 25%, but I would mix in, you know, like you can mix those calls in, but just folding it pure seems pretty reasonable. And again, all of these recommendations, these exploitative recommendations that I'm doing are advice from strictly if you wanted to win the most BB per 100. If your goal is to play these games and improve, don't, in my opinion, don't take any exploitative deviations. Just try your best to play solid poker. You know, just play your ranges, play your preflop ranges until you know your preflop, you know, until you know your ranges, until you know what you should be doing at a lot of these spots. You can't really exploit someone. You can't really do the proper exploits because you don't know what the proper solid way to play it is. Exploitation only exists in the context of knowing what the baseline is, what the equilibrium is, or what the GTO, quote unquote, is. And if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to make informed exploitative decisions. You're just guessing, which, you know, you can guess and you can make some right guesses a lot of the time, but it's better to know. So if your goal is to just learn and improve, then that's what you should be doing. Just learn and improve. If you played this pool for a long time though, and you started to get some hand samples on some regulars in these pools, I bet you there is a lot of exploits that you could take profitably. You'll notice I'm using the randomizer less as, again, I think it's less important BB per 100 wise to balance your frequencies out properly here, but it is an important thing to learn and be aware of because it will matter. Eventually, if you keep moving up, trust me, it will matter. It matters a lot. I'm tempted to peel on table 1 versus the half pot, but the problem is that we're reversed versus a lot of, like, you know, if he is bluffing, it's usually with a hand like ace king, but we do beat like king 10 and stuff, so that one might be a peel. That one's close. And table 2, I'm just gonna bet a size that I think a hand like king queen, queen jack, something like that is going to never consider folding. You could take an alternative approach and target like the 2 pairs that are probably never folding and bet like 1.5x pot. That's another thing is just because it's microstakes, don't be afraid to have overbets. Don't be afraid to do a lot of overbetting. You should still be doing a lot of overbetting. There's, you know, just because you're playing with weaker players or just because you're playing 50 NL, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't include overbets. You should be including a lot of overbets still. Even as bluffs is what I was trying to say. Table 2, again, one thing I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of the video. So congratulations if you reached it to this point. Another thing I think that you should do in micro stakes or just lower stakes in general is play solid, simple strategies. Simplifications are your best friend. An example of a simplification might be betting your range 1/3 in position, button versus big blind on a lot of textures. Another simplification might be, betting 1/3 small blind versus big blind single raise pot, or betting 1/3 in position as the three better versus an out of position caller. Just overall, just playing simple strategies that is going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to be more confident. You're going to know the spots better. You're going to not have to worry about complicated strategies that mix up, that do a lot of mixing. Especially when you're learning, it's better to learn and start off with these simple strategies and then move on to more complicated strategies once you have a good grasp of the simple first. So table 3 we call and bet big and face the check raise. And if I'm not going to fold here. It's too far of an exploitative adjustment to consider folding there, I would say. Just based on population reads that I think they might not be check raising this with the proper ranges. I think that's too crazy. They could be check raising with overpairs and stuff too. I think betting for like protection for 1/3 on table 3 is way too thin, I think, in this spot. But he does, I honestly feel like he's got like 10s, 9s. We're gonna randomize this one. I do feel like on table 3 he's got like 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, kings, like all day here. All day, all day. Maybe a hand like 8s. And we're gonna give up table 2. And I'm gonna bet small, just a size that I think those hands are gonna call. This is not, I'm not using GTO logic here on table 3. So this is an example of a hand where maybe at 50 NL we can just start checking the flop. Our hand makes a nice check call hand on the flop. We can start checking the turn. We can give up the river more often. Maybe these, or if we do bet the turn, maybe we should just fire the river more because these ranges can be a lot of weak pairs. A-side texture, table 1, big blind versus small blind 3-bet pot. Most A-side textures are good candidates in this spot to bet 1/3 with range. You have more ace-x than he does. You also have better ace-x than he does. Table 2, this is an example of what I was talking about where you might consider every time you're in position as the 3-better just to do a 1/3 with range bet. And table 1, I think we have enough showdown value to check this down. And we have better bluff candidates. Like we have hands that are just total junk that we can check. That we can bluff with here. Also expecting him to have more ace-x than he should with this line. And we'll check back table 2. Of course I'm timing out. Doesn't matter what stakes I'm playing at. I'm always timing out when I'm doing these videos with 3 tables. And table 2, we're gonna try to get him. I don't think he's peeling that many ace-x on the flop, So we're gonna bet a size to try to get him to fold like a hand like sevens. And if he heroes us with a hand like sevens, so be it. I think this bluff works more than the amount of times that it's required. You know, we're risking, what was that, like risking 15 big blinds to win 20. I think it works probably like 70% of the time or more, so we're making some profit here. The table 1 is an example of a hand that we would consider just folding even at these stakes, but we're deeper, so our value of our position goes up. You know, we don't have to battle here with marginal holdings. We can just fold and get the next hand. Fold and get the next hand and play solid. Table 3, I check being multi-ways, flop, and then I check turn. And now on the river, I think their calling ranges are pretty inelastic in the sense that even a king might not call me if I bet big on the river here, given that it's 4 ways, but 2 pairs never folding, a straight's never folding, and obviously a flush is never folding. Queen 10 suited is a good example of a hand we just get rid of. We don't have to play these marginal holdings. Also versus that size, that's a fold anyways, I believe. Definitely. Much preferring to come in as a 3-bet than as a call in general. In general versus a 3x open on the cutoff, and excuse me, in general versus loose continue here, but we have a weaker player in the pot, so yeah, playing pots with weaker players is a very profitable thing. Less inclined to have coming in as a flat in general in these high rate games, that's for sure. This might be a float sometimes on table 1. Again, marginal spots are not our friend. We can make the fold. I'm tempted to like greed bet to try to get called by the big blind who has like some 2x and 3x and 4x that we beat. I think it's a little too thin. So yeah, the problem with this stake is that you never hit the rate cap. I think 50 NL is like the highest effective. Oh no, that's not true because everything lower would be the highest effective as well. I think on table 1 and on table 2, both spots a 1/3 bet is going to be very effective. Tough to play against on table 1 especially. And now given our ace high and his ability to have 2x, we are going to check it back here. It wouldn't be crazy to bet this one again. And table 2, we have a clear check. We're actually doing pretty good still, considering the 1/3 bet. From like a theory point of view, we're still doing very good actually on table 2. Like our EV is very good. And table 1, you know, these are the spots where maybe you don't have to make these marginal bluffs on the river. But this one I kind of like. I like betting this one here. I think it's very credible, and I think he's got a lot of 5x and 9x, and maybe even some ace highs. But yeah, when you get snap called by the 9x, it looks kind of stupid, doesn't it? Again, you'd have to play this pool for a long time to know, you know, get the feel for what's more likely to encounter. If you're playing a random person, are you more likely to encounter someone who's going to be overcalling in the spot, or are you more likely to encounter someone who's going to be overfolding? Is it nitty regs, or is it loose fun players? It's not smart, I think, to make an assumption either way without having at least some knowledge of the pool. I'm gonna give up. I think these jacks make a nice call actually, but I'm gonna give that one up. We'll check back the ace jack on table 1, and I think we're gonna check back the king 10 on table 3. If I bet and get jammed, it kind of sucks. I think we have the equity to call, but yeah, I'm expecting him to be overfolding slightly on the flop, like not floating with the overcards that he needs to be. But also expect him to be under raising. So his range might be even stronger. Like what I'm saying is that his turn range is going to be a lot stronger than what it should be in theory. And this sucks, table one, but again, we're getting half. You know, we check back the flop, so we're a little bit capped, and we're getting half price. We chop with some aces. I expect, and I don't expect ace king to be checking the turn a lot. Sorry, checking the flop a lot. So yeah, we just chop a lot of the time. And I'm gonna bet a size that a 10 can call us, even though we block a 10. Also, I think we can get heroed by, if he did like slow play a set or turn to set like eights, I think he would check the river and then potentially, you know, facing this action, people are sticky with their sets and their two pairs. If I bet a normal size, I feel like I'm getting called by the same range. And this is what I mean by using logic, where maybe if I was playing 500 zoom or higher, I'd be thinking about this spot, you know, okay, my range wants to include some overbets because we have a lot of flushes that check back because we don't want to get check raised on the turn and get our equity denied. So therefore, I want to be balancing that betting range with some ace king that check back, and we'll use the ace king that has the king of spades blocker, ace of spades blocker, and then, you know, the bottom of my value range will be X, X, X. But at these stakes, and just in general, just, you know, I think his calling range is inelastic. Like if he's gonna call or he's gonna fold, then I should use a big size. I have a good hand, and we did get hero called, so yeah, just an example of don't level yourself. So I'm going to check back the 6-7 suited despite our backdoor flush draw. We have a lot of good turns for us, and if I do like face the check min raise on this flop, it's going to suck. 6-7 offsuit is one of those marginal hands I was talking about where we can just start making some folds with those hands. And another reason why I'm checking back the flop on table one is generally weaker players, they tend to overvalue ace X hands. Like you might see them call with like ace 5 offsuit, ace 6 offsuit, ace 7 offsuit, those types of hands more often than they would with other hands. And if they're doing that, there's a lot of ace X off combos and a lot of ace X suited combos. So their range just becomes way too ace X heavy. And that's just like a general exploit. Table 3, again, this isn't a board where we want to bet 1/3 with range, in my opinion, unless we're doing it for exploitative reasons, which we are. At table 2, this is a hand that we could consider 3-betting, but again, just play solid. And we'll check. I think we can check call versus a reasonable size on table 3. He's going to have a lot of floats, and versus the half pot, we're definitely going to make the check call. I think this one, he does have some 5x, but I don't think he chooses that size. So I do like mixing in some raises here, but I'll just make the call. Not sure how credible our check raise bluff would be on the river here. And the properties for hero calling are okay, but overall I'm just going to make the fold here. Queen 7 suited is already like one of those marginal hands. I just instinctively opened it, but it's already like one of those marginal hands from the cutoff that you could start considering. Like, you know, maybe even open like Queen 8 plus or something like that. Or if you really wanted to tighten up, like Queen 9 plus for your Queen X suiteds. Anyways, this video is going to be a short video. Just going to make it, let me just check how long I've been going for here. Okay. So yeah, already going for about half an hour, and that's about the length that I wanted to make this video. I might make some more of these videos. Might do like a little series on just playing in the micros. I think maybe next video I'll make a series about, I just noticed that PokerStars has some ante games. Like they're mixing in an ante for 10 cent, 25 cent, and some other games. Versus the min raise we will call the 6-5 off. Again, table 3, tight fold there, but yeah, just not taking these marginal spots. Gonna peel table 1. I think raising's a little thin. I do see some people donking strong hands on these boards, like especially small blind. Table 3, theoretically a board where we would want to be checking range, but I think if people aren't playing aggressively enough, and also people might be calling with the wrong ranges pre-flop, we'll fold on table 2 here. And yeah, just gonna wrap these tables up here. I'm gonna go for the greedy 1/3 bet on table 1, and we're gonna fold to the check raise. I think after he takes that line, he's got a lot of worse jack X, and then some 10x, 8x that has straight draw. And I think versus the size on table 3, we could call or check raise. I was considering even donking on table 3. The problem is he could have some ace-high floats. Yeah, he does have 5s. Again, that's not a spot we want to be donking with our range, but I was just considering donking as his range always ends up like a hand like this or a 9. The problem is I don't know how credible and how often I think he folds those types of hands. I think would be a nice spot to donk. Anyways, what I was saying is that I'll make some more of these videos, potentially, if you guys like them. I know there was a big request for some lower stakes, so here you go. If you're going to take a few takeaways from this video, it's play simplified, solid strategies. Play just solid poker, and if you're focusing on learning, which is what you should be doing in the micros if your goal is to move up eventually, then you should just be focusing on still playing solid theory poker. You're going to get some spots that are not solid theory poker because people are going to put you in those spots, but don't put yourself in those spots. Just play to the best of your ability, just solid poker. And yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.